Okay, the half anniversary is just a few days away, and today we need to talk about which of these characters you want to go all in for and which ones you might want to skip, especially if you are a free-to-play or a light spender. So to get this out of the way at the beginning of the video, what are the dates we can expect for the releases of these characters? So for Zonji, he is going to be releasing on May 2nd. That is 100% confirmed. That is when he will be coming out. That is just a few days away. So make sure you guys are prepared for that here at the end of the week. Zonji coming out. Then on May 9th, roughly a week later, this is tentative, keep in mind, we could probably expect Domain Expansion Gojo. Where do we get that date from? From looking at the JP timeline and kind of guesstimating when we think he's going to come out, which is about a week later, right? So that's when we should get the Domain Expansion Gojo, hopefully around May 9th. And those really, in my opinion, are the two anniversary characters. I don't know if I would consider everything from here on out that I'm about to talk about an anniversary character, but they are all kind of really important. So Yuta and Miguel are going to come out after Domain Expansion Gojo. I don't have an image up for them because honestly they're rerun characters, and Yuta's a rerun character and Miguel is not even worth talking about in the grand scheme of like, should you summon for that character? He is not good. I got him on JP. I tested him out. I really don't like him. Like, he is probably actually one of my most hated characters that I pulled on JP. I do not like Miguel at all as a character in the game. Like, I don't think he's very good. So I'm not even going to put him into the race as a character that you might even potentially want to use your cubes on. Okay, then after May 16th, the next date that we're going to be getting a character is another rerun character. More than likely, it's going to be on this date. It's going to be May 23rd, where we see Gato return. And the Gato I'm talking about is this Gato right here. Okay, he is very, very good since the buff. The buff made him probably one of the best debuffers in the game, if not the best debuffer in the game. He's insanely, insanely good. And if you don't have him yet, you should definitely be trying to get a copy of him. However, I'm going to also leave him out of the running here when I'm talking about different characters you might want to pull for, because he has already come out. This is a rerun banner, and a lot of people hopefully already have him. I know not everybody went super crazy on his banner because he came out around the time Yuta came out. People went all in for Yuta. People didn't really care about this character at the time because they didn't know he was getting buffed. So maybe people don't have him as much, but still, even then, in my opinion, it's going to be more important to like go for Gojo before you even consider going for Gato. Okay, so like that's just straight up like he's not in the running. Even though he's really, really good, I wouldn't put him in the top 3. So, and then last but not least, we have Sukuna, right? Sukuna is a very hype character. He literally broke the game on JP when he released on JP. We couldn't get into the servers for like literal hours, and he comes out roughly, this is all tentative, right? May change. He will come out on May 30th, hopefully. So all within the month of May, we are getting those characters. So we're getting Sukuna, we're getting Domain Expansion Gojo, we are getting Zone Itadori, and then we're getting reruns for Yuta and Gato, and Miguel comes out as well, but nobody cares about Miguel. So out of these 3 characters, out of Zonji, out of Satoru Gojo, Domain Expansion, and then out of Ryomen Sukuna, which of these 3 characters do I think is your number 1 pull? Which one do I think is your number 2 pull? And which one do I think is your number 3 pull? Which one should you be going for first, second, and last? Well, keep in mind that because Sukuna comes out so much later, that I don't believe these banners will be running anymore at the time that Sukuna comes out. I'm pretty sure that's the way it was on JP. I could be wrong, but let me know down in the comments. So first off, you're going to have to decide, do I want to pull for Gojo or do I want to pull for Itadori? And then if you decide you don't want to pull for either of them, then you can save your cubes for Sukuna, right? But personally, if I'm saying out of these 3, which one am I pulling for first? I'm going Gojo all the freaking way, baby. Because let me just go over his kit a little bit with you guys. He is the best support, best damage dealer in the game, hands down, bar none. Will carry you through every form of content in the game. So leads the field with once urgent business count reaches 0, increases own stats when Black Flash is performed. His skill 1, Converge and Strike, deals melee combined damage equal to 285.5% Taijutsu and 90.3% Jujutsu to the selected enemy for 3 hits. It goes up at level 10, obviously. And then if skill restriction status is active, decreases the selected enemy's critical resistance by 15%. Skill restriction status is after he's used his Domain Expansion. Then you get this additional effect right here. Other than that, it's basically just a damage skill. His skill 2, Curse Technique Lapse Blue, deals 357.2% 14.2% ranged jujutsu damage to all enemies. It is an AoE. For 4 hits, it's a multi-hit attack, which is insanely good and powerful in this game. An AoE multi-hit attack in any like gacha game like this is really, really strong. And then decreases all enemies damage dealt by 25% at level 10, by 16.9% at level 2. So there's your debuff as well. Decreasing their damage by that much is insanely good. And then if skill restriction status is active, skill cannot be used. So once you've used his domain expansion, you won't be able to use this skill. Keep that in mind. And then skill 3, Curse Technique Reversal Red, deals 465% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy. It is a single target attack. Increases own jujutsu stat by 29.7% for 3 turns. That is a self buff. At level 10, it's a 45% buff for 3 turns. That is a huge buff to his damage. And then if skill restriction status is active, you can't use this skill once again. And then last but not least, his bread and butter, his domain expansion, Infinite Void. This is literally what makes the character here, okay? So expands the domain, grants sure hit effect to self, cancel once the domain expansion ends, so he's guaranteed to land hits. Inflicts all enemies with stun for 2 turns, meaning they can't do anything. Inflicts all enemies with Infinite Void status for 4 turns. Decreases all enemies' ultimate skill count by 1. Prevents all enemies from increasing their ultimate skill count for 4 turns. Increases all enemies' damage received by 49.6% for 4 turns. That's really solid. Now if we look at level 10, 100% for 4 turns. That is freaking gross. And then depending on how high your own urgent business count is, when you activate this, you can get additional damage received to the enemy by 200%. Basically, if you could get it right away, you could do like 300% extra damage to the enemies. So because at level 10, right, 100% plus 200%, 300%, that's insane. And then max increase of a count of 6, minimum of 25% increase at a count of 1. So basically, if your urgent business count is still at 6, you'll get the full 200%. If your urgent count is at 1, you'll only get a 25% boost, which is significantly less. So in other words, you want to run a recollection or memory or a character with this domain expansion Gojo who's going to let him get his ultimate as quickly as possible. Okay, he also cancels out other domain expansions, activates skill restriction status 3 times, cannot change on ultimate skill gauge for 3 turns, increases own urgent business count by 1. So each time you use this as well, it's going to delay how soon Gojo goes away, so he's not going to go away as fast, which is nice. And then skill restriction status, if you don't know what that is, as we've been mentioning throughout this, some skills cannot be used. Decreases by 1 at the start of each turn. So like we saw up with skill 2 and skill 3, those skills couldn't be used while the domain expansion was in effect. And then last but not least, we have his auto skills. At the start of battle, grants urgent business status to self for 9 turns. Urgent business status, once urgent business status expires, leaves the field. So in other words, you have 3 turns until turn 6 to get that full 200% boost and activate your domain expansion, which is not that hard to do. His zone state, everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of characters that have black flashes now have this zone state. So when black flash is performed, activate zone state for 3 turns. Zone state is then going to increase your jujutsu by 30% and increase your critical hit rate by 30% as well. And then he also has the limitless technique like the other Gojo. So at the start of battle, grants attack immunity to self. If skill restriction status is active, cancels out attack immunity. So he won't have attack immunity after doing the domain expansion, but it doesn't matter because they're stunned, right? So this Gojo, insanely good. Like, I can't say it enough. Great damage dealer. He's a debuffer because he can lower their damage. He's a buffer to himself because he gives himself extra damage. He's a buffer to your team with his domain expansion because he gives extra damage to your team up to like 300%. He does pretty good damage himself. He has a multi-hit AoE on his skill 2, which is really good for ad clear. So he's good for like every type of content in the game, like single target, multi-target, support. Like, he's just literally freaking broken. Thus, why they put him literally at the top of the tier list. This is the JP tier list. For those of you that don't know, I preferentially use this tier list over the global one just because it's simplified. The global is nice because it breaks down like damage, support, all that other stuff. It is nice for that, but just when like looking at the overall characters, I highly like value this tier list because this is where the JP community goes and literally like votes to put these characters here, right? So I definitely agree with Gojo being up here at the top of the tier list. And keep in mind, this isn't an order. It's not saying that like Yaga is better than Gojo. They're not putting it in an order like that. But Gojo is very, very good. So besides Gojo, my second choice, Gojo is obviously my first choice if you guys couldn't tell. My second choice is going to be Sukuna. I was lucky enough to get Sukuna on JP when I had my JP account before I lost it. And he was it was literally Gojo and Sukuna that I leveled up as fast as I could. Before I lost my most recent JP account, I had him at like level 135, 140. I had him pretty dang high. And honestly, Sukuna can clear type disadvantage floors in Illusory Tower like nothing, okay? So you go into a green stage, you go into a stage where red is advantaged, and you use Sukuna, he still slaughters the enemies because of his abilities and because of his slashes, right? So what Sukuna does, his skill 1 deals 130% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy, and it fills his own ultimate skill gauge by 100. So basically you want to use this for the first few turns, turn 1, turn 2, however many turns it takes you to get his ultimate gauge up enough, and then you want to switch to his other skills that are going to allow him to buff himself, alright? But each time you use this, it's going to inflict a stack of continuous jujutsu damage, the laceration for 3 turns. Each stack of laceration increases an additional damage of laceration by 20%. And then his skill 2, Show Me, deals 235% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy, 3 hits, medium chance of performing a critical hit, so it is a multi-hit attack, increases his own critical hit rate by 30% and his own critical hit damage by 50% for 3 turns. So this is the skill you then want to use after getting your ultimate gauge high enough with skill 1. Then you start using your skill 2 before using your ultimate to buff yourself with a bunch of extra critical hit rate and critical hit damage. That way you are able to hit really, really hard when you do your ultimate, and the ultimate is insanely good. And keep in mind, when you get it to level 10, look at the buff. It gets so much bigger. That's just at level 1, and level 1 seems crazy, right? And then if skill restriction status is active, it changes the skill effect. This skill can be used. It costs 0 energy, increases own damage dealt by 50% for 1 time. The higher your own cursed energy is when the skill is activated, the greater the damage increase, up to 150% at 115 cursed energy. Deals 300% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy for 3 hits, increases the selected enemy's damage received by 30% for 3 turns as well. So that's going to help your other allies do damage as well, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, and then his critical hit rate right there is just absolutely insane. And then his skill 3, Unseen Slash, deals 160% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy, inflicts 2 stacks of 20% continuous jujutsu damage laceration for 3 turns. This is a skill you want to use after using your domain expansion. It's very strong. You don't want to use it before then. If own cursed energy is 40 or more, change a skill effect. Cursed energy cost 40, deals 320% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy, inflicts 2 stacks of 40% continuous jujutsu damage to the enemy. So you get more damage the more energy you have. So 40% here, 20% basic. And then if own cursed energy is 90 or more, it deals 800% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy and inflicts 3 stacks of 50% continuous jujutsu damage, laceration for 3 turns. And at level 10, those percentages do go up as well. The laceration damage doesn't change, but the overall damage does. So after you've used your domain expansion, which hits really hard, then you use your skill 3 and you hit even harder. It's well, you can use skill 2 and then skill 3, and you just freaking destroy people. Like, it's absolutely insane how much damage he can do. And then his ultimate domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, expands the domain, grants sure hit effect to self for 1 turn, nullifies attack nullification status, deals 1120 ranged jujutsu damage to all enemies for 8 hits. It's a multi-hit attack, hits all enemies. At level 10, it's 1684%, inflicts 4 stacks of continuous jujutsu damage, laceration for 4 turns, activates skill restriction status 2 times, cannot charge own ultimate skill gauge for 3 turns, increases the maximum amount of cursed energy by 100 for 6 turns, meaning he's able to gather more cursed energy and save up more cursed energy, and then recovers own cursed energy by 200. Skill restriction status means, once again, that some of your skills can't be used, like the same thing with Gojo. And then we do have some auto skills for him, 2 auto skills here. So reverse curse technique, at the start of a turn, recovers own HP based on the frequency of hit received. If a skill can hit multiple times, it still counts as 1 hit received, so keep that in mind. So if no hit is received, he has a 20% chance to recover 6,500 HP. If he receives a hit that does at least 3,000 damage, he has a 50% chance to regen HP. And if he receives 2 or more hits of 3,000 HP, he has an 85% chance to regen 6,500 HP. So pretty good chance to recover HP. That recovery of HP is very nice, trust me. And then King of Curses, at the start of the battle, grants poison, Darkness, Soul, Stun, Confusion, Immunity to Self. Grants immunity to instant death effects caused by soul damage to self. Grants 30% flame resistance to self as well. He's just OP. And then when critical hit is performed, increases own damage dealt by 30%. So even more damage for the damage god. And then recovers own cursed energy by 20. If receiving a hit of 3000 HP damage, 50% chance, increases own taijutsu and jujutsu stat by 20% for 2 turns. So even more damage. If a skill can hit multiple times, it still counts as 1 hit. Like, bro, he's just like probably the hardest hitting attacker in the game. Like, I know Gojo is probably the best when it comes to like support and damage. It's hard for me to say who has more damage. I think Gojo might still take the cake overall, but Sukuna is such a close second. Like, he's so good. Okay, so Sukuna is definitely my second pick, and then last but not least, we have Itadori, who is my third pick for characters. So when you're summoning, this is the tough part though, they put Itadori first, right? Itadori comes out first, then Gojo comes out, and then way later down the line, Sukuna comes out. So the good news is, by the time Sukuna comes out, you may be able to recover some of your cubes if you do decide to go in for Gojo, or if you decide to go in for Itadori, but you're not going to be able to recover enough cubes to pity this character, right? That's the problem. So you're going to have to really think about what you want to do. My advice is summon on the Gojo banner. Try to get Gojo. If you can get him before going to pity, get out of that banner, be done, be happy with your 1 copy. I think 1 copy is more than enough for free-to-play light spenders, okay? He is very, very good with 1 copy. You do not need to dupe him. Duping him is always nice for extra damage, but it's not necessary, okay? And then after you get Gojo, I don't recommend summoning on Itadori even really at all, but if you want to, you can. But the thing about Itadori is he's not necessary. So if we look at the tier list here, right, you notice Itadori is in SS tier. There are other yellow characters who are very good damage dealers that are also in this tier, okay? So Megumi is a solid support damage dealer, right? A lot of people have already used him. I wouldn't say he's Zone G level of damage, but there is a character here that is Zone G level of damage, which is this Gojo right here. So if you have hidden inventory Gojo, you do not need Zone G. However, on the other hand, when it comes to red characters like Domain Expansion Gojo, there is Yuta who does good damage, but they don't do the same things, right? The absolute amount of terror that this guy is able to create with the 300% extra damage that the enemies can take is so good. And then the stun, like the Domain Expansion cannot be underestimated. So like, I don't think he's really replaceable like Zone G is. And then if we talk about Sukuna, what other blue character do we have here? There is literally no other blue character. You have blue Gojo, but he's the only other like good blue attacker, and he goes away after a certain amount of turns. Sukuna doesn't go away. He is the reigning like blue king. He is the best blue attacker. So these two are literally not replaceable, whereas Zone G is, right? So that's why personally, okay, I know you probably don't want to hear it. I know a lot of people like this character. If you have to skip a character, and it sucks because he's the first anniversary banner, it should be Zone G. Okay, you should be skipping this character because even in the later floors of Illusory Tower, Domain Expansion Gojo can carry you through those floors. You do not have to have this character. Okay, but if worst comes to worst, maybe do like 2 to 4 summons at most. Trade in your pity points, put them on your pity card, and then give up on Itadori if you don't get him, right? And then focus on Gojo. Get Gojo if you can. Go to pity if you have to. Okay, he's your number 1 choice. If you don't have to go to pity though, then you get to save some cubes, and then later on you can summon for Sukuna. These are the 3 characters you want. Once again, I have to reiterate though that Yuta is going to be reran, Geto is going to be reran. You might want to summon for them. It might be tempting, but I do think technically all 3 of these characters are going to have more value for you. Well, except for maybe Itadori. I don't even know that I can argue that he has more value than Geto. But at least these 2 characters are going to have more value for you than getting Geto or Yuta, in my opinion. So that's what I would do. And then last but not least, let me just show you guys where Miguel is on the tier list because he's not great. Miguel's all the way down here. The JP tier list only goes to B tier. Here's Miguel. Okay, don't pull for Miguel. He's not worth it. He's really, really bad. But in general, hopefully that helps you out, guys. And if you did enjoy the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and peace.